Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm proud to be here at the Benson Crossroad Cowboy Gathering. Let's hear it. Come on. All right. I'm going to give you a little flavor of the cowboy. I call it cowboying. Them britches is creeping. Old saddle a creaking. Hot sweat aroba under your nose. Your spurs a cha-chinging. The bob whites are singing. The smell of leather comforts the soul. Trail dust a choking. Bull Durham you're smoking. You let your hosp stop to have a blow. With a chaw in your cheek as you're whistling a beat. From an old cowboy tune that you know. Then you'll think of your pa and your dear old grandpa, telling stories of days when they rode. It's built up in your roots, hands, back, and boots. Cowboying, the only life you've known. Riata is ready, your throw always steady. There you miss from years on a hoss. Tomorrow's payday, get a bath and a shave. Remember, the man that pays is your boss. In the weather, you cope whilst you're twisting the smoke, and the snow and the sleet and the rain. The cold cuts to the bone. You're there all alone. Froze fingers and toes, feel the pain. You're a fish old slicker, a swig of hard liquor. Makes you feel warm and comfy inside. Just a nip now and then to help steady your hand and help ease your hard day's long ride. Then you'll drift the back wind of your childhood and kin. And those no longer around. Riding and roping, branding and cutting. Days are gone, yet you still hear the sounds. When that old fire gets built from that stogie you killed, the seagulls glare with pride in your eyes. And the waft of burnt leather, the doggies, they beller. While the hot iron scorches their hides. Those mavericks you found, their ma's nowhere around. Broke down, ready to brand and to cut. Never a chance to fillet bull. Mountain oysters, you're full. Why, Cookie served them for lunch at the Chuck. Two they'll no longer own from your pocket knife honed. Now it's young steers they'll grow up to be. 'Tis this blood from your knife where they'll start a new life. Alas, more steers who've earned their degree. Thank you. This next one's the poem that got me fired up with cowboy poetry in 1965. My granddad was the one who used to recite this and a lot of others. And this sparked a high interest. I could picture these characters, what they looked like, where they were, and what they were doing every time I'd hear this. And those visions are still in my wild creative mind today. And this is Gail Gardner from Prescott, Arizona. And this is called Tying the Knots in the Devil's Tail, or more commonly known as the Devil's Tail. Way up high in the Sierra Peaks where the yellow pines grow tall, Buster Jiggs and Sandy Bob had a roundup camp last fall. They takes the horses and their running irons and, oh hell, maybe a dog or two. And why, they swore they'd brand every long-eared calf that came within their view. Now many a long-eared doggy that didn't hiss up by day had his long ears whittled and his old hide scorched in the most artistic way. Well, one fine day, says Sandy Bob as he rows his seagulls down, I'm tired of this cowboyography. If allows, I'll go to town. So they saddles him up and they took off at a lope. There was no choice of a ride, for them were the days when an old cowpoke could oil up his old inside. So they started out at the Kentucky bar at the head of Whiskey Row. Then they winds her up at the depot house some 40 drinks below. Then they sets him up. They turns him around and, by golly, they goes her the other way. And to tell you the honest to goodness truth, you guessed it, boys got drunk that day. Now, as they were headed back for camp and packing a pretty good load, why, who should they meet but the devil himself, prancing down the road. The devil says, "Why, you cowboy skunks, get better hunt your holes, for I've come up through these hell-rim rocks to gather up your souls." Says Buster Jiggs, "Why, we're just from town and feeling kind of tight. You ain't gonna get no cowboy show without some kind of a fight." So he punched a hole in his little throw rope and he slings her straight and true. And he ropes the devil around the horns and he takes his tallies too. Now Sandy Bob was a regatta man with his rope all coiled up neat. But he shakes it out and he pulls him a loop. And he ropes the devil's hind feet. Then they stretched him out on a desert ground. And while the irons were getting hot, why, they cropped and they swallow forked his ears. And they burned him up a lot. Psh, psh. There's another one, bud. Well, that one's going to leave a mark. Then they pruned him up with a dehorning saw. Tied knots in his tail for a joke. And they rode away and left him there, tied up to a black jack oak. Now, you ever go up to this here Pete's, and you hear an awful wail? Yeah! Well then, you'll know it's the devil a-bellowing around, with the knots tied on his tail. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love that poem. This one here is by E.A. Brennenstuhl, Finale of the Puncher. He wrote this before the turn of the century with his thought of what was going to become the demise of the cattle industry and the cattlemen. He came out with this in 1914, Eldest of a Maverick, and it's called Finale of the Puncher. When the last great herd is vanished, and the open range is gone, when the cattle have all vanished, their numbers are withdrawn. The branding days are over, the roping is all through, then it is we'll sit and wonder, what's a cowpunch going to do? When the cowman comes to sever what connections he had left, and the trail herds pass forever, there ain't a cayuse left. When the old chuck wagon rumbles over the ridges and out of view, and the cook was yelling, "Grub pile," what's a puncher going to do? When the squealing, bucking bronco comes an old plow nag, in the saddle and the poncho, hand up in an old grain bag. When his bits and spurs are rusting, and his gun is useless too, and there's no more roundup starting, what's a puncher going to do? When the last night herding's finished, and he's seen his last stampede, and the bunkhouse bangs diminished, and the brand irons, there's no need. When the old yeller slicker is put by for store duds new, and his shaps have been discarded, what's a puncher going to do? When the Wild West ain't no longer, when the plains are seas of grain, and the nesters crowding stronger, the cowman can't remain. We know life is but a vision to which he must bid adieu. And tell me, my old range partners, what's a cowpunch going to do? Thank you.